This is a presentation using the waveboard add-in. My name is John Evanson and I'll be doing this presentation. Within this presentation we're going to create this plaque here with some fish using some of the functionality within the new waveboard add-in. We're going to start by producing our own customized button bar. So we'll have a new, what we call this, fishers. Go down to fishers, down to commands, and I want to look at maybe some of the waves, and this one we can drag and drop that into our new button bar, which is here. We want this one. We continue. Also want to come into special geometries, get the ellipse, come down to CAD, looking for line properties, and we'll build this up. It's a great way of presenting the product, because when you're using your mouse you're then not dashing around looking for and trying to remember where all these commands are. And finally, under File, we'll get Convert Raster to Vector, because that's the first thing we're going to do. We'll convert raster to vector. The file we're looking for is fish. I'm looking to put this into an area 240 by 180. I'm going to delete this outside boundary, don't require that. We'll have an ellipse 240 by 180. Place it down roughly there. Now all these geometries have come in on the layer APS geometry. Now I wish to machine these using a machining strategy which you saved earlier called 2mm pocket. If I right click on that, I can then create a layer for that style. Come back into layers and we'll see then under user layers I've now got a layer called pocket. I'm just going to edit that layer. We change the colour to white, and then we're going to line properties and we'll say all except for this outside one, and I want to put them all now on the layer pocket. Before I can pocket, I need to tool directions, and I'm going to use the automatic for pocket on all except for this outside, and then that puts tool directions on the inside of the fish and the outside of the eye. We can now come directly to our machining style and say apply to layer, and now we've machined away the inside of our fish. Next I want to create some waves for my little fish to swim around in, but before I do that I want to make sure that the waves don't crash into my fish, so I'm just going to do an offset, maybe 3mm from some of these geometries. Come back into our waves tab, hide away some geometries, hide away the operations. So now we'll create our waves. The sea, we'll use the pre-saved setting of fish waves. OK to that, just select that as the boundary. You can see that some of these waves are now coming over the top of our fish. We want to trim that back. We can use the command fabricate and delete area. These are the areas we want to delete within, and then we'll just say all, and that trims and deletes, and we're now ready to switch back on our user layers and our operations. We don't need these outside boundaries anymore, so we can go back into our line properties, and I'm going to then select them, and then I'm going to put them onto a construction layer, and it's very easy for us to come back into here and also hide those. So now I want to machine these waves, but these waves, if we switch some things off, we'll just switch the operations off and have a look at these. We'll see that all the geometry is actually in flatland, but we want to start moving some of these waves up and down in Z as well. So again, I'm going to switch a few things off. I'm going to find this outside boundary because I don't want it at the moment. Found it there. I can right click and say hide. I can come into my user layers and just switch those off, and a few little geometries there that are probably a little bit too short, so we can delete those. Maybe this one, this one. So if we're going to convert lines to arc Z waves, the top of each one of these waves is going to be at 0, the bottom is -3, and that will be a fixed depth if it wasn't for this. Now I want it to start at 0 at each end and to be -3 in the middle. You'll see this when we simulate it in a moment, so we'll say to that it's a pre-saved configuration of fish waves. Okay, so select our tool. We'll use cut spline polyline, say all, fixed angle on the center. Let's put those toolpaths on. We come back into our layers, switch on the pocket, which is the fish outline, and now we're going to put some fish scales across the fish, some more waves. We'll start by just doing an offset so that the scales don't run outside the fish bodies. Now we'll go and select our waves in X and Y. We have one pre-selected there called fish scales. We're working inside these boundaries. Now I don't need those outside boundaries anymore, so I'm going to put them onto a construction layer. So I've gone into line properties, we'll select previous, and then I want to put them onto construction. And I want to just put some circles on, some bubbles, just to prove that these fishes are alive. And we'll just loosely place these. A couple of 3 per fish. I have a machining style that I wish to use on these, and that's working on a layer, so I'm going to create the layer for the style, come back into my layers, and I have one there called scales. So I need to ensure now that I've put the scales and the bubbles on the scale layer. So we'll come into our layers and we'll hide a few things away. I want to hide all those splines, polylines. If I hold the shift button, click on the top one and the bottom one, and then right click and can hide those. And then we'll come down to the user layers, and also I don't want to see the pocket. I'm just going to delete this small one back here, a little bit too small. We'll go into line properties. We can now select all, and we wish those to become scales, and we'll have those maybe this blue. We can then come into machining styles and we apply those to selected geometries. We'll switch everything back on, come into our operations, switch all those on, and we now need to set material. It's going to be this. Okay, and if we come into here, maybe I wish to change the colour on that, so we'll edit the layer, go for dark blue. Okay, and then we're ready to simulate. Finally, we'll machine the fish scales. And there we have our completed fish. I want to do a couple of modifications to this. We'll change the depth maybe of these fish scales and move these two bubbles. So just cancel that. We'll do a move both, just drag that away a little bit, both again, come back into our operations, and I wish this to be -2.1, and then we can update that toolpath, and we'll once again do a simulation, this time with the show tools off, so it'll do a little bit faster. That looks better. And so there we have our completed fishes. I've applied the toolpaths that have gone along here, but if I deleted all the toolpaths, I could then, I've used an auto style. I've got one here called fishes, and then apply all these toolpaths automatically at the end of the process. The waveboard add-in can of course be used to create decorative waveboards, an example here, and there is a further presentation on how to use the waveboard add-in to create waveboards available on Marvin. At this point I'd like to thank you for your time. Please enjoy using the waveboard add-in. If you have any questions, please come back to me, John Edmondson. Once again, thank you.